I stood at the bank counter and I couldn't stop shaking. My whole body felt like it was going to fall apart right there on that cold marble floor. Lucy was holding onto my left hand so tight that my fingers were going numb, and Tommy had his little arms wrapped around my right leg, his face buried in my coat because he wouldn't stop crying. It was Christmas Eve. The clock on the wall said 7:45 p.m. Most people were home right now sitting by their Christmas trees, drinking hot chocolate, watching their kids get excited about Santa coming. But not us. We were standing in a bank that was about to close, and we had nowhere to go. My hands wouldn't stop shaking as I dug through my purse, looking for anything that might help us. I had $12 in cash. $12. That was everything I had in the world. Gerald had made sure of that. Just 2 hours ago, I had a home. I had a house where my children had their own bedrooms, where their Christmas presents were wrapped and waiting under the tree. But Gerald showed up with his new girlfriend Vanessa and told me I had 1 hour to get out. He said his lawyer found some legal trick that meant he could take the house back right now, tonight, on Christmas Eve. I begged him. I actually got down on my knees and begged him to let us stay just one more night. Just until Christmas morning, so the kids could wake up in their own beds one last time. And you know what he said? He laughed. He looked at me kneeling there on the floor and he laughed and said, "You should have thought about that before you wasted 15 years being useless." Lucy heard him say that. My 9-year-old daughter heard her father call her mother useless. I saw something break in her eyes right then. So here we were, standing in a bank, homeless, on Christmas Eve. "Mommy, I'm cold," Tommy whispered against my leg. He was only 6. He didn't understand why Daddy had thrown away all his toys. He didn't understand why we couldn't go home. "I know, baby. I know," I said, but my voice cracked. I was trying so hard not to cry in front of them, but tears were running down my face anyway. The security guard near the door kept looking at us. I could tell he felt sorry for us, but sorry doesn't pay for a hotel room. Sorry doesn't feed hungry children. That's when I remembered something. My fingers touched something plastic at the very bottom of my purse in that little pocket I never used. I pulled it out and stared at it. It was an old debit card. The kind that looks worn out because it's been in a purse for years without ever being used. My mother had given this to me 6 years ago, right before she got really sick with cancer. I remember that day so clearly. She was sitting in her hospital bed, and she took my hand and pressed this card into it. "Trisha," she said, her voice weak but serious, "don't use this card unless you absolutely have to. Only use it when you have nothing left. Do you understand me? Nothing left." I asked her what it was, but she just closed her eyes and said, "You'll know when the time comes. Keep it safe. Keep it secret." She died 3 weeks later. I never used the card. I honestly forgot I even had it most of the time. But now, standing here with my crying children and nowhere to go, I figured this counted as having nothing left. I walked up to the banker behind the counter. His name tag said Mr. Harold Peterson. He was an older man, maybe in his 60s, with grey hair and glasses. "Excuse me," I said, my voice barely working. "I need to check if this card has any money on it." I handed him the card. My hands were shaking so bad I almost dropped it. Mr. Peterson took the card and looked at it. Then he looked at it again, closer this time. His eyebrows went up. He turned the card over, studying it like it was some kind of puzzle. "One moment, please," he said quietly. He typed something into his computer. Then he stopped. His fingers hung in the air above the keyboard. He leaned closer to his screen, his eyes getting wider. He typed something else. Then he just stared. The colour drained right out of his face. I mean, it literally left his face. He went pale like he'd seen a ghost. "Is something wrong?" I asked. My heart started beating faster. Oh no. What if there was no money? What if this was my last hope and there was nothing there? Mr. Peterson looked up at me. Then he looked at his computer screen, then back at me. His hands started shaking just like mine. "Mom," he said, and his voice came out weird and tight. He looked around like he was making sure nobody else could hear. Then he leaned forward across the counter and whispered urgently, almost desperately, "You need to see this right now. Please, come with me to my office immediately, right now." Something in his voice scared me and gave me hope at the same time. Lucy squeezed my hand tighter. "What is it?" I whispered back. "What did you find?" But Mr. Peterson was already coming around from behind the counter. "Please follow me. Bring your children. Quickly." He started walking fast toward a hallway marked private offices. I stood there for a second, confused and scared, not knowing what to do. Then Mr. Peterson turned around and looked at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. "Mom, trust me. You need to see this. Now." My mind was spinning as I followed Mr. Peterson down that hallway, but while we walked to his office, all I could think about was how different my life used to be. How did I end up here? How did everything fall apart so completely? I met Gerald 17 years ago at a college art show. I was 20 years old, in my third year of graphic design school, and my work was being displayed for the first time. I was so nervous that night, standing next to my paintings, hoping someone, anyone, would say something nice about them. Then Gerald walked up. He was 24, already working in real estate, wearing a suit that probably cost more than my entire semester's tuition. But he didn't act snobby or rich. He stood in front of my favourite painting for almost 10 minutes, just staring at it. "This is incredible," he finally said, turning to me with this huge smile. "You made this?" I nodded, too shy to say much. "You're going to be famous someday," he told me. "I can feel it." Nobody had ever talked about my art like that before. Nobody had ever looked at me the way he did that night, like I was special, like I mattered. We started dating 2 weeks later. Gerald was everything I thought I wanted. He was confident when I was scared. He had plans when I didn't know what I was doing with my life. He talked about building an empire, about becoming someone important, and he said he wanted me right there beside him. "We're going to have an amazing life together," he used to say. "I promise you, Trisha. I'm going to give you everything." We got married when I was 22. I had 1 year left of college, but Gerald said it didn't make sense for me to finish. "Why waste time and money on a degree?" he asked. "You're going to be my wife. I'm going to take care of you. You'll never have to worry about anything." It sounded romantic back then. It sounded like love. I dropped out of college 3 months after our wedding. Gerald said we needed to save money because he was starting his own real estate development company. I got a job as a waitress to help pay our bills while he built his business. Then I got pregnant with Lucy. Gerald was happy about it, or at least he seemed happy. "This is perfect," he said. "You can stay home with the baby. That's what's best for children, having their mother at home." So I quit my job. I became a stay-at-home mum. And honestly, I loved it at first. Lucy was this perfect little baby, and I poured all my creativity into being her mother. I made her baby food from scratch. I decorated her nursery with hand-painted murals. I read her 10 books every night. Gerald's business started doing really well. We moved into a bigger house. He bought a new car. He started wearing more expensive suits and working longer hours. "I'm doing this for you and Lucy," he always said when I complained about him never being home. "I'm building a future for our family." When Tommy came along 3 years later, things got even busier. Gerald was travelling all the time for work. Sometimes he'd be gone for a whole week. I was alone with 2 small kids, managing everything by myself, but I told myself this was normal. This was what wives did. They supported their husbands' dreams. The years went by so fast. Lucy started school, Tommy started school. I volunteered in their classrooms, hosted playdates, baked cookies for every school event. I was the mom who was always there, always helping, always available. But somewhere along the way, Gerald changed. Or maybe he didn't change. Maybe I just finally saw who he really was. He stopped complimenting me. He stopped thanking me for anything I did. When I'd spend all day cleaning the house, he'd come home and point out the one dish I forgot to put away. When I'd cook his favourite meal, he'd eat it without saying a word, then go to his office and close the door. I tried so hard to make him happy. I lost weight. I dyed my hair. I wore the clothes he said looked nice. I agreed with everything he said, but nothing worked. He just got colder and more distant. My mother noticed. About 4 years before she died, she came over for dinner and watched how Gerald treated me. After he left the table without even clearing his plate, she followed me into the kitchen. "Trisha, honey, are you happy?" she asked me quietly. "Of course, Mom," I lied. "Everything's fine." She looked at me with these sad eyes. "You gave up your dreams for him. You gave up your art, your education, your career. What did he give up for you?" I didn't have an answer for that. My mother got sick with cancer not long after that conversation. During her last few years, she kept asking me questions about Gerald, about our marriage, about our finances. I thought she was just worried because she was dying and wanted to make sure I'd be okay. Now I wonder if she knew something I didn't. 6 months ago, Gerald came home on a Tuesday night and said 5 words that destroyed my world. "I want a divorce, Trisha." Just like that. No warning, no discussion. He already had a lawyer. He already had papers drawn up. He'd already been planning this for months, maybe years. "You contributed nothing to this marriage," his lawyer said in court. "You have no job, no income, no assets in your name. You're entitled to minimal support." I sat there listening to them describe my 15 years of marriage like I'd just been sitting around doing nothing. Like raising our children meant nothing. Like supporting Gerald's dreams meant nothing. The judge agreed with them. Christmas Eve started out quiet. Too quiet. I was in the kitchen making sandwiches for Lucy and Tommy's lunch when I heard a truck pull up outside. My stomach dropped immediately. I knew that sound. I knew what it meant. Gerald wasn't supposed to come back until next week. That's what his lawyer had told my lawyer. I had until January 5th to find a new place and move out. I had exactly 2 weeks. We'd even agreed on it in writing. But when I looked out the window, there he was. Getting out of his black Mercedes like he owned the place, which, according to the court, he did. Vanessa got out of the passenger side. She was wearing these expensive boots and a coat that probably cost more than I spent on groceries in 3 months. She was 26 years old. Gerald's former secretary, the woman he'd been cheating on me with for who knows how long. Behind them, a huge moving truck pulled up to the curb. My hands started shaking. No. This wasn't happening. This couldn't be happening. I ran to the front door and opened it before they could knock. "Gerald, what are you doing here? You're not supposed to be here until next week." He smiled. Not a nice smile. A mean one. "Change of plans, Trisha. My lawyer found something interesting in the divorce agreement. Turns out there's a clause that lets me take possession of the house immediately if I give you proper notice, which I'm giving you now." "What are you talking about? We had an agreement." "Had," he said, walking right past me into the house. My house. Our house. The place where I'd raised our children for 9 years. "Now I need you out. Today." Vanessa followed him inside, looking around like she was already planning how to redecorate everything. She didn't even look at me. I was invisible to her. "Gerald, it's Christmas Eve," I said, trying to keep my voice steady even though I wanted to scream. "The kids' presents are under the tree. Their stockings are hung up. You can't do this today." "I can do whatever I want," he said, pulling out his phone. "The house is in my name. The judge gave it to me. You're just a guest here, and I'm done being generous." "Generous?" The word came out like a gasp. "You call throwing your children out on Christmas Eve generous?" "Where's Daddy?" Tommy came running down the stairs, his face lighting up when he saw Gerald. My baby boy still loved his father, still didn't understand that Daddy didn't want us anymore. "Daddy, are you here for Christmas? Are you staying?" Gerald's face didn't soften at all. "No, Tommy, I'm here to move into my house with Vanessa." Tommy looked confused. "But this is our house." "Not anymore, kid." I watched my 6-year-old son's face crumple, Lucy appeared at the top of the stairs and she understood immediately. She was 9, old enough to know what was happening, old enough to see her father for what he really was. "You have 1 hour," Gerald said, checking his watch. "Take your personal items, clothes, toiletries, whatever. Everything else stays." 1 hour? Gerald, I can't pack up our entire lives in 1 hour. Then I guess you better work fast. He turned to the 2 men getting out of the moving truck. Start bringing in the furniture from storage. Put it anywhere, there's space. I stood there in shock as these strangers started walking into my home, carrying boxes and furniture. Vanessa was directing them, telling them where to put things, acting like she'd lived here for years. "Mommy?" Lucy came down the stairs slowly, her voice small and scared. "What's happening?" I couldn't answer her. I physically couldn't make words come out of my mouth. Gerald walked over to the Christmas tree, our beautiful tree that the kids and I had decorated together just last week. Tommy had put a paper angel on top that he'd made in school. Gerald reached up and pulled it off, crumpling it in his hand. "This junk has to go too," he said, tossing Tommy's angel into the fireplace. "She hired a private investigator," Mr. Peterson continued. "She collected bank statements, business records, emails, everything. It's all here. Every piece of evidence showing that Gerald Monroe has been stealing money and hiding it from the government, from his business partners, and from you." My hands were shaking so badly I couldn't hold the papers he was giving me. They scattered across his desk. "Your mother also discovered something else," he said, his voice getting harder. "She found proof that Gerald bribed his divorce attorney. Attorney Bernard Hutchins received $75,000 from Gerald's hidden offshore account 6 months before Gerald filed for divorce. The money trail is clear. They worked together to make sure you got nothing in the divorce settlement." I felt like I was going to throw up. They planned it. They planned all of it. Yes. Your mother knew this was coming. She saw it before you did. That's why she set up this trust. That's why she gathered all this evidence. She was protecting you. Tears were streaming down my face. My mother. My sweet mother who I thought worried too much, who asked too many questions, who always seemed suspicious of Gerald. She wasn't being paranoid. She was being smart. She was saving me. "There's more," Mr. Peterson said. He pulled out a sealed letter from the envelope. It had "For Tricia" written across it in my mother's shaky handwriting. She must have written it when she was very sick. "She left this for you," he said, handing it to me. "She said you should read it when you were ready, when you had nothing left, when you needed her most." I took the letter with trembling hands. The paper was thick and expensive. Just like my mother, always doing things properly, even at the end. "The evidence in this envelope is enough to reopen your divorce case," Mr. Peterson said. "It's enough to get Gerald arrested for fraud and tax evasion. It's enough to prove that your divorce settlement was obtained through illegal means." I stared at the letter in my hands. "Your mother left you everything you need to fight back, Mrs. Bennet, everything." I sat there holding my mother's letter, afraid to open it. Lucy and Tommy had finished their hot chocolate and were sitting quietly, watching me. They didn't understand what was happening, but they could tell it was important. Mr. Peterson stood up. "I'll give you some privacy," he said gently. "Take all the time you need." After he left, I just stared at the envelope. My mother's handwriting looked shaky, like her hands were trembling when she wrote my name. She was dying when she wrote this. She knew she was dying, and instead of resting, instead of focusing on herself, she was thinking about me, protecting me. I carefully opened the envelope. Inside was a letter written on several pages of her favourite cream-coloured stationery, the kind she always used for important things. "My dearest Tricia," it began. "If you're reading this, it means I'm gone. It also means you've hit rock bottom. I'm so sorry I'm not there to help you through whatever Gerald has done. But I want you to know that I saw this coming. I saw it years ago. I never liked Gerald. I know you knew that, even though I tried to hide it. But a mother knows. I saw how he looked at you, like you were something he owned instead of someone he loved. I saw how he talked about your art, your dreams, like they didn't matter. I saw how he convinced you to give up everything that made you special. 4 years ago, I started noticing strange things about his business. I still had some connections from my accounting days, and people talk. They mentioned Gerald's name in ways that made me worried. So I started digging. What I found made me sick, sweetheart. Gerald has been stealing money for almost a decade. He has accounts in the Cayman Islands, in Switzerland, in Panama. He's been lying on his taxes, lying to his business partners, lying to everyone. The man has over $8 million hidden away that nobody knows about. Nobody except me. And now you. I hired a private investigator named Robert Chen. He's the best. He's been watching Gerald for 3 years. He has photographs of Gerald meeting with Vanessa Cole. Did you know they've been together for 4 years? 4 years, Tricia. Long before he asked for a divorce. Robert has pictures of them at hotels, at restaurants, even at a house Gerald bought for her using his hidden money. But here's the worst part, and I'm so angry, I can barely write this. Gerald planned your divorce 2 years ago. He met with attorney Hutchins, and they created a strategy to make sure you got nothing. Gerald moved all his visible assets into business accounts. He made it look like he was barely making any money. He set up the whole thing so that on paper he was almost broke. Then he paid Hutchins $75,000 under the table to make sure the judge ruled in his favor. She hired a private investigator, Mr. Peterson continued. She collected bank statements, business records, emails, everything. It's all here. Every piece of evidence showing that Gerald Monroe has been stealing money and hiding it from the government, from his business partners, and from you. My hands were shaking so badly I couldn't hold the papers he was giving me. They scattered across his desk. Your mother also discovered something else, he said, his voice getting harder. She found proof that Gerald bribed his divorce attorney. Attorney Bernard Hutchins received $75,000 from Gerald's hidden offshore account 6 months before Gerald filed for divorce. The money trail is clear. They worked together to make sure you got nothing in the divorce settlement. I felt like I was going to throw up. They planned it. They planned all of it. Yes. Your mother knew this was coming. She saw it before you did. That's why she set up this trust. That's why she gathered all this evidence. She was protecting you. Tears were streaming down my face. My mother. My sweet mother who I thought worried too much, who asked too many questions, who always seemed suspicious of Gerald. She wasn't being paranoid. She was being smart. She was saving me. There's more, Mr. Peterson said. He pulled out a sealed letter from the envelope. It had "For Tricia" written across it in my mother's shaky handwriting. She must have written it when she was very sick. She left this for you, he said, handing it to me. She said you should read it when you were ready, when you had nothing left, when you needed her most. I took the letter with trembling hands. The paper was thick and expensive. Just like my mother, always doing things properly, even at the end. The evidence in this envelope is enough to reopen your divorce case, Mr. Peterson said. It's enough to get Gerald arrested for fraud and tax evasion. It's enough to prove that your divorce settlement was obtained through illegal means. I stared at the letter in my hands. Your mother left you everything you need to fight back, Mrs. Bennet, everything. I sat there holding my mother's letter, afraid to open it. Lucy and Tommy had finished their hot chocolate and were sitting quietly, watching me. They didn't understand what was happening, but they could tell it was important. Mr. Peterson stood up. I'll give you some privacy, he said gently. Take all the time you need. After he left, I just stared at the envelope. My mother's handwriting looked shaky, like her hands were trembling when she wrote my name. She was dying when she wrote this. She knew she was dying, and instead of resting, instead of focusing on herself, she was thinking about me, protecting me. I carefully opened the envelope. Inside was a letter written on several pages of her favorite cream-colored stationery, the kind she always used for important things. My dearest Tricia, it began. If you're reading this, It means I'm gone. It also means you've hit rock bottom. I'm so sorry I'm not there to help you through whatever Gerald has done. But I want you to know that I saw this coming. I saw it years ago. I never liked Gerald. I know you knew that, even though I tried to hide it. But a mother knows. I saw how he looked at you, like you were something he owned instead of someone he loved. I saw how he talked about your art, your dreams, like they didn't matter. I saw how he convinced you to give up everything that made you special. 4 years ago, I started noticing strange things about his business. I still had some connections from my accounting days, and people talk. They mentioned Gerald's name in ways that made me worried. So I started digging. What I found made me sick, sweetheart. Gerald has been stealing money for almost a decade. He has accounts in the Cayman Islands, in Switzerland, in Panama. He's been lying on his taxes, lying to his business partners, lying to everyone. The man has over $8 million hidden away that nobody knows about. Nobody except me. And now you. I hired a private investigator named Robert Chen. He's the best. He's been watching Gerald for 3 years. He has photographs of Gerald meeting with Vanessa Cole. Did you know they've been together for 4 years? 4 years, Trisha. Long before he asked for a divorce. Robert has pictures of them at hotels, at restaurants, even at a house Gerald bought for her using his hidden money. But here's the worst part, and I'm so angry, I can barely write this. Gerald planned your divorce 2 years ago. He met with attorney Hutchins, and they created a strategy to make sure you got nothing. Gerald moved all his visible assets into business accounts. He made it look like he was barely making any money. He set up the whole thing so that on paper he was almost broke. Then he paid Hutchins $75,000 under the table to make sure the judge ruled in his favor. Everything in that divorce was a lie. Every single thing. I've spent the last 2 years of my life gathering proof. Every bank statement, every email, every photograph, every lie. It's all in the safety deposit box at First National Reserve Bank. Mr. Peterson has the key. He's a good man. He'll help you. I've also set up this trust for you. I started it when you were just a little girl because I always wanted you to be independent. I wanted you to have your own money, your own security. But I made it larger in these last few years. I liquidated everything I had. I sold my house, my car, everything. I invested it carefully. I wanted to make sure you and my grandchildren would be okay when Gerald finally showed his true colours. $2.7 million isn't enough to match what Gerald stole, but it's enough to fight him. It's enough to hire the best lawyers. It's enough to make sure Lucy and Tommy are safe and cared for while you rebuild your life. Trisha, my sweet girl, I need you to understand something. You are not useless. You are not worthless. You gave up your dreams for a man who didn't deserve you, but that doesn't mean those dreams are gone forever. You are still the talented, creative, brilliant woman who painted those beautiful pictures. You are still the daughter I raised to be strong and independent. Gerald made you forget who you are. But I never forgot. And I need you to remember now. Use this money. Use this evidence. Fight back. Show him what happens when you hurt a woman whose mother taught her to plan ahead. There's a lawyer I want you to call. Her name is Patricia Howell. I've already talked to her about your situation. She knows everything. She's waiting for your call. Her number is at the bottom of this letter. I'm so sorry I won't be there to see you take Gerald down. I'm sorry I won't be there to watch you become yourself again. But I'll be watching from wherever I end up. And I'll be so proud of you. You are my greatest achievement, Trisha. Not my career. Not my savings. You. My beautiful, kind, strong daughter. Now go show the world what you're made of. Take care of Lucy and Tommy. Tell them their grandmother loved them more than anything. And tell them that their mother is a fighter. I love you forever. And always. Mom, P.S. There's one more thing in the safety deposit box. It's a small box wrapped in blue paper. Don't open it until everything is over. Until you've won. It's a gift I was saving for when you found yourself again." I finished reading and the tears came so hard I couldn't breathe. Lucy got up and hugged me. Then Tommy climbed onto my lap. We sat there in Mr. Peterson's office, holding each other, crying. But for the first time in 6 months, I wasn't crying because I was scared. I was crying because I finally had hope. 3 days after Christmas, I walked into the law offices of Patricia Howell wearing the only nice outfit I had left. Lucy and Tommy were with my neighbour, Mrs. Chen, who had taken us in on Christmas Eve when she saw us standing outside in the cold. She was a kind woman who asked no questions and gave us her guest room. Patricia Howell's office was on the 20th floor of a building downtown. Everything was glass and steel and expensive looking. The receptionist led me to a conference room where Ms. Howell was waiting. She was about 50 years old, with grey hair cut short and sharp eyes that looked like they didn't miss anything. She stood up when I came in and shook my hand firmly. "Mrs. Bennet," she said, "your mother told me a lot about you. I'm so sorry for your loss. Margaret was an exceptional woman." "You knew my mother?" "We were friends for many years," Ms. Howell said, gesturing for me to sit. "She came to me 2 years ago with concerns about your husband. We've been preparing for this moment ever since." I set the manila envelope on the table between us. "Mr. Peterson gave me all of this. I've read through it, but I don't understand all the legal stuff. I just know that Gerald has been lying about everything." Ms. Howell opened the envelope and started going through the documents. Her expression got harder with each page she read. After about 10 minutes, she looked up at me. "This is the most clear-cut case of fraud and corruption I've seen in 20 years, she said. "Your ex-husband is going to prison. Attorney Hutchins is going to be disbarred, and you're going to get everything you deserve. What do we do? First, we file an emergency motion to freeze all of Gerald's assets. Every account, every property, everything. We do it today, before he has a chance to move any more money. Then we file a motion to reopen your divorce case based on fraud. We're going to prove that the entire settlement was obtained illegally." My hands were shaking again, but this time it wasn't from fear. "How long will this take? With evidence this solid?" "Not long. Maybe 2 months. Your mother did all the hard work for us. She gift-wrapped this case." Ms. Howell made phone calls right there in front of me. Within an hour, she had filed the emergency motion. By that afternoon, a judge had approved it. Gerald's accounts were frozen, all of them, including the ones he thought nobody knew about. I was at Mrs. Chen's apartment when my phone rang. It was Gerald. I almost didn't answer, but Ms. Howell had told me to record any calls from him. So I hit record and answered. "What did you do?" Gerald was screaming so loud I had to hold the phone away from my ear. "What the hell did you do, Tricia?" "I don't know what you're talking about," I said calmly. Ms. Howell had coached me. "Stay calm. Don't admit anything. Let him talk." "The police were here," he yelled. "They froze all my accounts. They're investigating me for fraud. This is your fault. What did you tell them?" "I told them the truth, Gerald." "The truth? You don't know anything about my business." "I know about the $8 million you've been hiding. I know about the offshore accounts. I know about the money you paid Hutchins to rig our divorce. I know everything." There was silence on the other end. Complete silence. I could hear him breathing hard. "That's impossible," he finally said. But his voice was different now, scared. "You couldn't have found that. Nobody knows about that." "My mother knew. She spent 2 years investigating you. She has bank statements, emails, photographs, everything. She knew you were planning to destroy me, so she made sure I'd have what I needed to fight back." "Your mother is dead." "Yes, she is, but her evidence isn't. It's all sitting on a judge's desk right now, along with proof that you bribed your lawyer and lied to the court." Gerald started swearing. Words I'd never heard him use before. Threats. Angry, desperate threats about what he was going to do to me. "You can't do this to me," he shouted. "I'll fight this. I have the best lawyers money can buy." "Actually, you don't have any money right now," I said. "It's all frozen." And your lawyer Hutchins? He's being investigated too. I don't think he's going to be able to help you anymore. This is because of those brats, isn't it? Gerald's voice turned mean. You're doing this for those kids. You always cared more about them than me. Something inside me snapped. Those kids are your children, Gerald. Lucy and Tommy are your son and daughter. And yes, I care more about them than you. Because they're good people, they're kind, they're nothing like you. You'll regret this, he hissed. I promise you, you'll regret this. No, I said quietly. I regret the 15 years I wasted on you. I regret believing your lies. I regret letting you make me feel worthless, but this? Fighting back? I'll never regret this. I hung up. My hands were shaking so badly I dropped the phone. But I wasn't scared. For the first time since all of this started, I felt strong. 2 hours later, Ms. Howell called me. Vanessa Cole just left him, she said, and I could hear the smile in her voice. Apparently, she was only interested in Gerald when he had money. Now that his accounts are frozen and he's facing criminal charges, she's gone. She moved out this afternoon. I should have felt happy about that. But mostly I just felt tired. Good, I said. He deserves to know what it feels like to lose everything. 2 months later, I stood in the same courtroom where Gerald had taken everything from me. But this time was different. This time, I wasn't alone and scared. This time, I had Ms. Howell sitting next to me, and I had my mother's evidence, and I had the truth. Gerald sat on the other side of the room with a court-appointed lawyer. Hutchins was gone, facing his own criminal charges. Gerald looked terrible. His expensive suit didn't fit right anymore. His face was pale and thin. He wouldn't look at me. The judge was a woman named Judge Anderson. She was about 60 years old with kind eyes but a stern voice. She'd spent the past 2 months reviewing every piece of evidence my mother had collected. This is one of the most disturbing cases I've handled in my 30 years on the bench, Judge Anderson said, looking directly at Gerald. Mr. Monroe, you systematically lied to this court. You hid assets. You bribed an officer of the court. You manipulated legal proceedings to cheat your wife out of what she was legally entitled to. Gerald's lawyer tried to say something, but the judge held up her hand. I've reviewed the financial records. The offshore accounts containing over $8 million. The payments to Attorney Hutchins. The house you purchased for Miss Cole using hidden funds. The business expenses you falsified. All of it. She shook her head. You painted yourself as a struggling businessman who could barely afford to support his ex-wife. Meanwhile, you were living a secret life of luxury. I watched Gerald's face turn red. His hands were clenched on the table in front of him. Mrs. Bennet, the judge turned to me, I want to apologize to you on behalf of this court. We failed you. We should have investigated more thoroughly. Your original divorce settlement was a mockery of justice. Thank you, Your Honor, I said quietly. Judge Anderson picked up her papers. Therefore, I am voiding the original divorce settlement in its entirety. Mr. Monroe, you are hereby ordered to pay Mrs. Bennet $5.2 million in restitution. This includes her rightful share of marital assets, alimony for 15 years of marriage, child support, and damages for fraud and emotional distress. $5.2 million. Combined with my mother's trust, that was almost $8 million. More money than I'd ever imagined having. Additionally, the judge continued, I am awarding Mrs. Bennet full custody of Lucy and Tommy Monroe. You will have supervised visitation only, pending the outcome of your criminal trial. Gerald stood up suddenly. This is insane! You can't do this! Sit down, Mr. Monroe, Judge Anderson said sharply. I can, and I am. You're lucky I can't add jail time to this ruling, but don't worry. The criminal court will handle that part. Gerald's lawyer pulled him back down into his seat. I could see Gerald shaking with anger, but there was nothing he could do. Nothing. This court is adjourned, Judge Anderson said, banging her gavel. Ms. Howell hugged me right there in the courtroom. You did it, she whispered. Your mother would be so proud. I couldn't speak. I just cried and nodded. 3 weeks later, Gerald was sentenced to 6 years in prison for tax evasion and fraud. Hutchins got 4 years for accepting bribes and manipulating court proceedings. Vanessa was never charged with anything, but I heard she moved to another state and changed her name. With the money from the settlement and my mother's trust, I bought a beautiful house in a good neighborhood. It had 4 bedrooms, a big backyard, and a room with perfect light that I turned into an art studio. My art studio. Lucy and Tommy loved the new house. They each got to decorate their own rooms however they wanted. Tommy chose dinosaurs and spaceships. Lucy chose purple everything. They were happy. Really, truly happy in a way they hadn't been in years. I started painting again. At first, my hands felt clumsy like I'd forgotten how, but slowly it came back. The colours, the shapes, the way art made me feel alive and whole. I'd been dead inside for so long I'd forgotten what it felt like to create something beautiful. I also started my graphic design business again. Ms. Howell helped me set everything up legally. Within 3 months, I had 5 clients. Within 6 months, I had 12. People liked my work. They said it was creative and fresh and different. On a warm Saturday in April, I took Lucy and Tommy to visit my mother's grave. We brought flowers, their favourite kind, pink roses. "Tell us the story again, Mommy," Tommy said as we stood there, "about how Grandma saved us." So I did. I told them how their grandmother had been so smart and so loving that she'd spent her last years making sure we'd be okay. I told them how she'd gathered evidence and saved money and planned everything perfectly. I told them how she'd known their father was bad before anyone else did. "Is Grandma watching us from heaven?" Tommy asked. I smiled. "I know she is, baby, and I know she's proud of both of you." Lucy put her hand in mine. "Are you happy now, Mommy?" I looked at my daughter, my beautiful, smart, strong daughter who'd been through so much. Then I looked at Tommy, who was already running around the cemetery looking at flowers and butterflies, being a normal, happy kid again. "Yes, sweetheart," I said. "I'm happy. Finally." That night, after the kids were asleep, I remembered something. My mother's letter had mentioned a gift in the safety deposit box, a small box wrapped in blue paper that I should open when everything was over. Everything was over now. I'd won.